Chapter 56. An important conference takes place between Mr. Pickwick and Samuel Weller, at which his parent assists. An old gentleman in a snuff-colored suit arrives unexpectedly. Mr. Pickwick was sitting alone, musing over many things, and thinking among other considerations how he could best provide for the young couple whose present unsettled condition was matter of constant regret and anxiety to him, when Mary stepped lightly into the room, and advancing to the table said, rather hastily, "Oh, if you please, sir, Samuel is downstairs, and he says may his father see you." "Surely," replied Mr. Pickwick. "Thank you, sir," said Mary, tripping towards the door again. "Sam has not been here long, has he?" inquired Mr. Pickwick. "Oh, no, sir," replied Mary eagerly. "He has only just come home. He is not going to ask you for any more leave, sir, he says." Mary might have been conscious that she had communicated this last intelligence with more warmth than seemed actually necessary, or she might have observed the good-humored smile with which Mr. Pickwick regarded her when she had finished speaking. She certainly held down her head and examined the corner of a very smart little apron, with more closeness than there appeared any absolute occasion for. "Tell them they can come up at once, by all means," said Mr. Pickwick. Mary, apparently much relieved, hurried away with her message. Mr. Pickwick took 2 or 3 turns up and down the room, and, rubbing his chin with his left hand as he did so, appeared lost in thought. "Well, well," said Mr. Pickwick, at length in a kind but somewhat melancholy tone, "it is the best way in which I could reward him for his attachment and fidelity. Let it be so, in heaven's name. It is the fate of a lonely old man, that those about him should form new and different attachments and leave him. I have no right to expect that it should be otherwise with me. No, no," added Mr. Pickwick more cheerfully, "it would be selfish and ungrateful. I ought to be happy to have an opportunity of providing for him so well. I am. Of course I am." Mr. Pickwick had been so absorbed in these reflections that a knock at the door was 3 or 4 times repeated before he heard it. Hastily seating himself and calling up his accustomed pleasant looks, he gave the required permission, and Sam Weller entered, followed by his father. "Glad to see you back again, Sam," said Mr. Pickwick. "How do you do, Mr. Weller?" "Worry hearty, thank ye, sir," replied the widower. "Hope I see you well, sir." "Quite, I thank you," replied Mr. Pickwick. "I wanted to have a little bit conversation with you, sir," said Mr. Weller. "If you could spare me 5 minutes or so, sir." "Certainly," replied Mr. Pickwick. "Sam, give your father a chair." "Thank ye, Samuel, I've got a chair here," said Mr. Weller, bringing one forward as he spoke. "Uncommon fine day it's been, sir," added the old gentleman, laying his hat on the floor as he sat himself down. "Remarkably so indeed," replied Mr. Pickwick. "Very seasonable." "Seasonablest veither I ever see, sir," rejoined Mr. Weller. Here the old gentleman was seized with a violent fit of coughing, which, being terminated, he nodded his head and winked and made several supplicatory and threatening gestures to his son, all of which Sam Weller steadily abstained from seeing. Mr. Pickwick, perceiving that there was some embarrassment on the old gentleman's part, affected to be engaged in cutting the leaves of a book that lay beside him, and waited patiently until Mr. Weller should arrive at the object of his visit. "I never see sich a grawatin boy as you are, Samuel," said Mr. Weller, looking indignantly at his son. "Never in all my born days." "What is he doing, Mr. Weller?" inquired Mr. Pickwick. "He vont begin, sir," rejoined Mr. Weller. "He knows I ain't eckle to expressin' myself ven there's anythin' particler to be done, and yet he'll stand and see me settin' here taking up your wailable time, and mackin' a reglar spectacle o' myself, rather than help me out vith a syllable." "It ain't filial conduct, Samuel," said Mr. Weller, wiping his forehead. "Worry far from it." "You said you de-speak," replied Sam. "How should I know you woes done up at the worry beginnin'?" "You might seen I warn't able to start," rejoined his father. "I'm on the wrong side of the road and into the Palin S and all manner of unpleasantness, and yet you vont put out a hand to help me. I'm ashamed on you, Samuel." "The fact is, sir," said Sam with a slight bow, "the gov'nor's been drowin' his money." "Worry good, Samuel, worry good," said Mr. Weller, nodding his head with a satisfied air. I didn't mean to speak harsh to you, Sammy. Worry good. That's the way to begin. Come to the pint at once. Worry good indeed, Samuel. Mr. Weller nodded his head an extraordinary number of times, in the excess of his gratification, and waited in a listening attitude for Sam to resume his statement. You may sit down, Sam, said Mr. Pickwick, apprehending that the interview was likely to prove rather longer than he had expected. Sam bowed again and sat down. His father looking round, he continued. The governor, sir, has drawn out £530. Reduced counsels, interposed Mr. Weller, senior, in an undertone. It don't much matter whether it's reduced counsels or what not, said Sam. £530 is the sum, ain't it? All right, Samuel, replied Mr. Weller. To which sum he has added for the house and business. Lease, goodwill, stock, and fixtures, interposed Mr. Weller. As much as makes it, continued Sam, altogether £1,180. Indeed, said Mr. Pickwick. I am delighted to hear it. I congratulate you, Mr. Weller, on having done so well. Wait a minute, sir, said Mr. Weller, raising his hand in a deprecatory manner. Get on, Samuel. This here money, said Sam, with a little hesitation. He's anxious to put somewheres, veer he knows it'll be safe, and I'm worry anxious too, for if he keeps it, he'll go lendin' it to somebody, or investin' property and horses, or droppin' his pocketbook down an airy, or mackin' a Egyptian mummy of hisself in some way or another. Worry good, Samuel, observed Mr. Weller, in as complacent a manner as if Sam had been passing the highest eulogiums on his prudence and foresight. Worry good. For which reasons, continued Sam, plucking nervously at the brim of his hat for which reasons, he's drawn it out today, and come here with me to say, leastways to offer, or in other words. To say this here, said the elder Mr. Weller impatiently, that it ain't no use to me. I'm a-goin' to vork a coach reglar, and ha'n't got novers to keep it in, unless I vos to pay the guard for talkin' care on it, or to put it in the coach pockets, which 'ud be a temptation to the insides. If you'll take care on it for me, sir, I shall be worry much obliged to you. P-raps, said Mr. Weller, walking up to Mr. Pickwick and whispering in his ear, P-raps, it'll go a little way towards the expenses that air conwiction. All I say is, just you keep it till I ask you for it again. With these words, Mr. Weller placed the pocketbook in Mr. Pickwick's hands, caught up his hat, and ran out of the room with a celerity scarcely to be expected from so corpulent a subject. Stop him, Sam, exclaimed Mr. Pickwick earnestly. Overtake him, bring him back instantly. Mr. Weller here come back. Sam saw that his master's injunctions were not to be disobeyed, and, catching his father by the arm as he was descending the stairs, dragged him back by main force. My good friend, said Mr. Pickwick, taking the old man by the hand, your honest confidence overpowers me. I don't see no occasion for nothin' the kind, sir, replied Mr. Weller obstinately. I assure you, my good friend, I have more money than I can ever need, far more than a man at my age can ever live to spend, said Mr. Pickwick. No man knows how much he can spend till he tries, observed Mr. Weller. Perhaps not, replied Mr. Pickwick, but as I have no intention of trying any such experiments, I am not likely to come to want. I must beg you to take this back, Mr. Weller. Worry well, said Mr. Weller, with a discontented look. Mark my words, Sammy, I'll do something desperate with this here property, something desperate. You'd better not, replied Sam. Mr. Weller reflected for a short time, and then, buttoning up his coat with great determination, said, I'll keep a pike. What? Exclaimed Sam. A pike, rejoined Mr. Weller through his set teeth. I'll keep a pike. Say good-bye to your father, Samuel. I do the remainder of my days to a pike. This threat was such an awful one, and Mr. Weller, besides appearing fully resolved to carry it into execution, seemed so deeply mortified by Mr. Pickwick's refusal, that gentleman, after a short reflection, said, Well, well, Mr. Weller, I will keep your money. I can do more good with it, perhaps, than you can. Just the worry thing, to be sure, said Mr. Weller, brightening up. Oh, course you can, sir. Say no more about it, said Mr. Pickwick, locking the pocketbook in his desk. I am heartily obliged to you, my good friend. Now sit down again. I want to ask your advice." The internal laughter occasioned by the triumphant success of his visit, which had convulsed not only Mr. Weller's face, but his arms, legs, and body also, during the locking up of the pocketbook, suddenly gave place to the most dignified gravity as he heard these words. "Wait outside a few minutes, Sam, will you?" said Mr. Pickwick. Sam immediately withdrew. Mr. Weller looked uncommonly wise and very much amazed when Mr. Pickwick opened the discourse by saying, "You are not an advocate for matrimony, I think, Mr. Weller." Mr. Weller shook his head. He was wholly unable to speak. Vague thoughts of some wicked widow having been successful in her designs on Mr. Pickwick choked his utterance. "Did you happen to see a young girl downstairs when you came in just now with your son?" inquired Mr. Pickwick. "Yes. I see a young gal," replied Mr. Weller shortly. "What did you think of her now?" "Candidly, Mr. Weller, what did you think of her?" "I thought she was worry plump and well made," said Mr. Weller with a critical air. "So she is," said Mr. Pickwick, "so she is." "What did you think of her manners, from what you saw of her?" "Worry pleasant," rejoined Mr. Weller. "Worry pleasant and comfortable." The precise meaning which Mr. Weller attached to this last-mentioned adjective did not appear, but, as it was evident from the tone in which he used it that it was a favorable expression, Mr. Pickwick was as well satisfied as if he had been thoroughly enlightened on the subject. "I take a great interest in her, Mr. Weller," said Mr. Pickwick. Mr. Weller coughed. "I mean an interest in her doing well," resumed Mr. Pickwick, "a desire that she may be comfortable and prosperous. You understand?" "Worry clearly," replied Mr. Weller, who understood nothing yet. "That young person," said Mr. Pickwick, "is attached to your son." "To Samuel Weller," exclaimed the parent. "Yes," said Mr. Pickwick. "It's natural," said Mr. Weller, after some consideration, "natural but rather alarmin'. Sammy must be careful." "How do you mean?" inquired Mr. Pickwick. "Worry careful that he don't say nothin' to her," responded Mr. Weller. "Worry careful that he ain't led Ave, in a innocent moment, to say anythin' as may lead to a conwiction for breach. You're never safe fifth Mr. Pickwick, ven they once has designs on you. There's no knowin' veer to have and while you're a considering of it they have you. Woe's married fust, that vey myself, sir, and Sammy woes the consequens o' the manover." "You give me no great encouragement to conclude what I have to say," observed Mr. Pickwick, "but I had better do so at once. This young person is not only attached to your son, Mr. Weller, but your son is attached to her." "Vell," said Mr. Weller, "this here's a pretty sort o' thing to come to a father's ears, this is." "I have observed them on several occasions," said Mr. Pickwick, making no comment on Mr. Weller's last remark, "and entertain no doubt at all about it. Supposing I were desirous of establishing them comfortably as man and wife in some little business or situation, where they might hope to obtain a decent living, what should you think of it, Mr. Weller?" At first, Mr. Weller received with wry faces a proposition involving the marriage of anybody in whom he took an interest. But, as Mr. Pickwick argued the point with him, and laid great stress on the fact that Mary was not a widow, he gradually became more tractable. Mr. Pickwick had great influence over him, and he had been much struck with Mary's appearance, having, in fact, bestowed several very unfatherly winks upon her already. At length he said that it was not for him to oppose Mr. Pickwick's inclination, and that he would be very happy to yield to his advice. Upon which, Mr. Pickwick joyfully took him at his word, and called Sam back into the room. "Sam," said Mr. Pickwick, clearing his throat, "your father and I have been having some conversation about you." "About you, Samuel," said Mr. Weller, in a patronizing and impressive voice. "I am not so blind, Sam, as not to have seen, a long time since, that you entertain something more than a friendly feeling towards Mrs. Winkle's maid," said Mr. Pickwick. "You hear this, Samuel," said Mr. Weller, in the same judicial form of speech as before. "I hope, sir," said Sam, addressing his master, "I hope there's no harm in a young man talkin' notice of a young 'ooman as is undeniably good-looking and well-conducted." "Certainly not," said Mr. Pickwick. "Not by no means," acquiesced Mr. Weller, affably but magisterially. So far from thinking there is anything wrong in conduct so natural, resumed Mr. Pickwick, it is my wish to assist and promote your wishes in this respect. With this view, I have had a little conversation with your father, and finding that he is of my opinion. The lady not bane, a widder, interposed Mr. Weller in explanation. The lady not being a widow, said Mr. Pickwick, smiling. I wish to free you from the restraint which your present position imposes upon you, and to mark my sense of your fidelity and many excellent qualities, by enabling you to marry this girl at once, and to earn an independent livelihood for yourself and family. I shall be proud, Sam, said Mr. Pickwick, whose voice had faltered a little hitherto, but now resumed its customary tone, proud and happy to make your future prospects in life my grateful and peculiar care. There was a profound silence for a short time, and then Sam said, in a low, husky sort of voice, but firmly withal, I'm very much obliged to you for your goodness, sir, as is only like yourself, but it can't be done. Can't be done, ejaculated Mr. Pickwick in astonishment. Samivel, said Mr. Weller with dignity. I say it can't be done, repeated Sam in a louder key. What is to become of you, sir? My good fellow, replied Mr. Pickwick, the recent changes among my friends will alter my mode of life in future, entirely. Besides, I am growing older and want repose and quiet. My rambles, Sam, are over. How do I know that, sir? Argued Sam. You think so now. I suppose you woes to change your mind, which is not unlikely, for you've the spirit o' 25 in you still, what 'ud become on you without me? It can't be done, sir, it can't be done. Worry good, Samivel, there's a good deal in that, said Mr. Weller encouragingly. I speak after long deliberation, Sam, and with the certainty that I shall keep my word, said Mr. Pickwick, shaking his head. New scenes have closed upon me, my rambles are at an end. Worry good, rejoined Sam. Then, that's the worry best reason why you should always have somebody by you as understands you, to keep you up and make you comfortable. If you vant a more polished sort o' feller, well and good have him. But vages or no vages, notice or no notice, board or no board, lodgin' or no lodgin', Sam Veller, as you took from the old inn in the borough, sticks by you, come what may, and let everythin' and everybody do their worry fiercest, nothin' shall ever perwin it. At the close of this declaration, which Sam made with great emotion, the elder Mr. Weller rose from his chair, and, forgetting all considerations of time, place, or propriety, waved his hat above his head, and gave 3 vehement cheers. My good fellow, said Mr. Pickwick, when Mr. Weller had sat down again, rather abashed at his own enthusiasm, you are bound to consider the young woman also. I do consider the young 'ooman, sir, said Sam. I have considered the young 'ooman. I've spoke to her. I've told her how I'm sitivated. She's ready to vait till I'm ready, and I believe she will. If she don't, she's not the young 'ooman I take her for, and I give her up with readiness. You've knowed me afore, sir. My mind 's made up, and nothing can ever alter it. Who could combat this resolution? Not Mr. Pickwick. He derived, at that moment, more pride and luxury of feeling from the disinterested attachment of his humble friends than 10,000 protestations from the greatest men living could have awakened in his heart. While this conversation was passing in Mr. Pickwick's room, a little old gentleman in a suit of snuff-colored clothes, followed by a porter carrying a small portmanteau, presented himself below, and, after securing a bed for the night, inquired of the waiter whether one Mrs. Winkle was staying there, to which question the waiter, of course, responded in the affirmative. Is she alone? Inquired the old gentleman. I believe she is, sir, replied the waiter. I can call her own maid, sir, if you. No, I don't want her, said the old gentleman quickly. Show me to her room without announcing me. Sir, said the waiter. Are you deaf? Inquired the little old gentleman. No, sir. Then listen, if you please. Can you hear me now? Yes, sir. That's well. Show me to Mrs. Winkle's room without announcing me. As the little old gentleman uttered this command, he slipped 5 shillings into the waiter's hand and looked steadily at him. Really, sir, said the waiter, I don't know, sir, whether. You'll do it, I see, said the little old gentleman. You had better do it at once. It will save time. There was something so very cool and collected in the gentleman's manner that the waiter put the 5 shillings in his pocket and led him upstairs without another word. "This is the room, is it?" said the gentleman. "You may go." The waiter complied, wondering much who the gentleman could be and what he wanted. The little old gentleman, waiting till he was out of sight, tapped at the door. "Come in," said Arabella. A pretty voice at any rate," murmured the little old gentleman, "but that's nothing." As he said this, he opened the door and walked in. Arabella, who was sitting at work, rose on beholding a stranger a little confused but, by no means ungracefully so. "Pray don't rise, ma'am," said the unknown, walking in and closing the door after him. "Mrs. Winkle, I believe." Arabella inclined her head. "Mrs. Nathaniel Winkle, who married the son of the old man at Birmingham," said the stranger, eyeing Arabella with visible curiosity. Again Arabella inclined her head and looked uneasily round, as if uncertain whether to call for assistance. "I surprise you, I see, ma'am," said the old gentleman. "Rather, I confess," replied Arabella, wondering more and more. "I'll take a chair, if you'll allow me, ma'am," said the stranger. He took one, and drawing a spectacle case from his pocket, leisurely pulled out a pair of spectacles, which he adjusted on his nose. "You don't know me, ma'am," he said, looking so intently at Arabella that she began to feel alarmed. "No, sir," she replied timidly. "No," said the gentleman, nursing his left leg, "I don't know how you should." "You know my name, though, ma'am." "Do I?" said Arabella, trembling, though she scarcely knew why. "May I ask what it is?" "Presently, ma'am, presently," said the stranger, not having yet removed his eyes from her countenance. "You have been recently married, ma'am." "I have," replied Arabella, in a scarcely audible tone, laying aside her work, and becoming greatly agitated as a thought that had occurred to her before struck more forcibly upon her mind. "Without having represented to your husband the propriety of first consulting his father, on whom he is dependent, I think?" said the stranger. Arabella applied her handkerchief to her eyes. Without an endeavor, even, to ascertain, by some indirect appeal, what were the old man's sentiments on a point in which he would naturally feel much interested, said the stranger. "I cannot deny it, sir," said Arabella. "And without having sufficient property of your own to afford your husband any permanent assistance in exchange for the worldly advantages which you knew he would have gained if he had married agreeably to his father's wishes," said the old gentleman. "This is what boys and girls call disinterested affection, till they have boys and girls of their own, and then they see it in a rougher and very different light." Arabella's tears flowed fast, as she pleaded in extenuation that she was young and inexperienced, that her attachment had alone induced her to take the step to which she had resorted, and that she had been deprived of the counsel and guidance of her parents almost from infancy. "It was wrong," said the old gentleman in a milder tone, "very wrong. It was romantic, unbusinesslike, foolish." "It was my fault, all my fault, sir," replied poor Arabella, weeping. "Nonsense," said the old gentleman. "It was not your fault that he fell in love with you, I suppose." "Yes, it was, though," said the old gentleman, looking rather slyly at Arabella. "It was your fault. He couldn't help it." This little compliment, or the little gentleman's odd way of paying it, or his altered manner so much kinder than it was, at first, or all three together, forced a smile from Arabella in the midst of her tears. "Where's your husband?" inquired the old gentleman, abruptly, stopping a smile which was just coming over his own face. "I expect him every instant, sir," said Arabella. "I persuaded him to take a walk this morning. He is very low and wretched at not having heard from his father." "Low is he?" said the old gentleman. "Serve him right." "He feels it on my account, I am afraid," said Arabella, "and indeed, sir, I feel it deeply on his. I have been the sole means of bringing him to his present condition." "Don't mind it on his account, my dear," said the old gentleman. "It serves him right. I am glad of it, actually glad of it, as far as he is concerned." The words were scarcely out of the old gentleman's lips, when footsteps were heard ascending the stairs, which he and Arabella seemed both to recognize at the same moment. The little gentleman turned pale, and making a strong effort to appear composed, stood up, as Mr. Winkle entered the room. "Father," cried Mr. Winkle, recoiling in amazement. "Yes, sir," replied the little old gentleman. "Well, sir, what have you got to say to me?" Mr. Winkle remained silent. "You are ashamed of yourself, I hope, sir," said the old gentleman. Still Mr. Winkle said nothing. "Are you ashamed of yourself, sir, or are you not?" inquired the old gentleman. "No, sir," replied Mr. Winkle, drawing Arabella's arm through his. "I am not ashamed of myself, or of my wife either." "Upon my word," cried the old gentleman ironically. "I am very sorry to have done anything which has lessened your affection for me, sir," said Mr. Winkle. "But I will say, at the same time, that I have no reason to be ashamed of having this lady for my wife, nor you of having her for a daughter." "Give me your hand, Nat," said the old gentleman in an altered voice. "Kiss me, my love. You are a very charming little daughter-in-law after all." In a few minutes' time, Mr. Winkle went in search of Mr. Pickwick, and returning with that gentleman, presented him to his father, whereupon they shook hands for 5 minutes incessantly. "Mr. Pickwick, I thank you most heartily for all your kindness to my son," said old Mr. Winkle, in a bluff, straightforward way. "I am a hasty fellow, and when I saw you last, I was vexed and taken by surprise. I have judged for myself now, and am more than satisfied. Shall I make any more apologies, Mr. Pickwick?" "Not one," replied that gentleman. "You have done the only thing wanting to complete my happiness." Hereupon there was another shaking of hands for 5 minutes longer, accompanied by a great number of complimentary speeches, which, besides being complimentary, had the additional and very novel recommendation of being sincere. Sam had dutifully seen his father to the Belle Sauvage, when, on returning, he encountered the fat boy in the court, who had been charged with the delivery of a note from Emily Wardle. "I say," said Joe, who was unusually loquacious, "what a pretty girl Mary is, isn't she? I am so fond of her, I am." Mr. Weller made no verbal remark in reply, but eyeing the fat boy for a moment, quite transfixed at his presumption, led him by the collar to the corner and dismissed him with a harmless but ceremonious kick. After which he walked home, whistling. Chapter 57, in which the Pickwick Club is finally dissolved, and everything concluded to the satisfaction of everybody. For a whole week after the happy arrival of Mr. Winkle from Birmingham, Mr. Pickwick and Sam Weller were from home all day long, only returning just in time for dinner, and then wearing an air of mystery and importance quite foreign to their natures. It was evident that very grave and eventful proceedings were on foot, but various surmises were afloat, respecting their precise character. Some, among whom was Mr. Tupman, were disposed to think that Mr. Pickwick contemplated a matrimonial alliance, but this idea the ladies most strenuously repudiated. Others rather inclined to the belief that he had projected some distant tour, and was at present occupied in effecting the preliminary arrangements. But this again was stoutly denied by Sam himself, who had unequivocally stated, when cross-examined by Mary, that no new journeys were to be undertaken. At length, when the brains of the whole party had been racked for 6 long days, by unavailing speculation, it was unanimously resolved that Mr. Pickwick should be called upon to explain his conduct, and to state distinctly why he had thus absented himself from the society of his admiring friends. With this view, Mr. Wardle invited the full circle to dinner at the Adelphi, and the decanters having been thrice sent round, opened the business. "We are all anxious to know," said the old gentleman, "what we have done to offend you, and to induce you to desert us and devote yourself to these solitary walks." "Are you?" said Mr. Pickwick. "It is singular enough that I had intended to volunteer a full explanation this very day. So, if you will give me another glass of wine, I will satisfy your curiosity." The decanters passed from hand to hand with unwonted briskness, and Mr. Pickwick, looking round on the faces of his friends with a cheerful smile, proceeded. "All the changes that have taken place among us," said Mr. Pickwick, "I mean the marriage that has taken place and the marriage that will take place, with the changes they involve, rendered it necessary for me to think, soberly and at once, upon my future plans. I determined on retiring to some quiet, pretty neighborhood in the vicinity of London. I saw a house which exactly suited my fancy. I have taken it and furnished it. It is fully prepared for my reception, and I intend entering upon it at once, trusting that I may yet live to spend many quiet years in peaceful retirement, cheered through life by the society of my friends, and followed in death by their affectionate remembrance." Here Mr. Pickwick paused, and a low murmur ran round the table. "The house I have taken," said Mr. Pickwick, "is at Dulwich. It has a large garden, and is situated in one of the most pleasant spots near London. It has been fitted up with every attention to substantial comfort, perhaps to a little elegance besides, but of that you shall judge for yourselves. Sam accompanies me there. I have engaged, on Perker's representation, a housekeeper of very old one and such other servants as she thinks I shall require. I propose to consecrate this little retreat by having a ceremony in which I take a great interest, performed there. I wish, if my friend Wardle entertains no objection, that his daughter should be married from my new house, on the day I take possession of it. The happiness of young people," said Mr. Pickwick, a little moved, "has ever been the chief pleasure of my life. It will warm my heart to witness the happiness of those friends who are dearest to me, beneath my own roof." Mr. Pickwick paused again. Emily and Arabella sobbed audibly. "I have communicated, both personally and by letter, with the club," resumed Mr. Pickwick, "acquainting them with my intention. During our long absence, it has suffered much from internal dissensions, and the withdrawal of my name, coupled with this and other circumstances, has occasioned its dissolution. The Pickwick Club exists no longer. I shall never regret," said Mr. Pickwick in a low voice, "I shall never regret having devoted the greater part of 2 years to mixing with different varieties and shades of human character, frivolous as my pursuit of novelty may have appeared to many. Nearly the whole of my previous life having been devoted to business and the pursuit of wealth, numerous scenes of which I had no previous conception have dawned upon me, I hope, to the enlargement of my mind and the improvement of my understanding. If I have done but little good, I trust I have done less harm, and that none of my adventures will be other than a source of amusing and pleasant recollection to me in the decline of life. God bless you all." With these words, Mr. Pickwick filled and drained a bumper with a trembling hand, and his eyes moistened as his friends rose with one accord and pledged him from their hearts. There were few preparatory arrangements to be made for the marriage of Mr. Snodgrass. As he had neither father nor mother, and had been in his minority a ward of Mr. Pickwick's, that gentleman was perfectly well acquainted with his possessions and prospects. His account of both was quite satisfactory to Wardle as almost any other account would have been, for the good old gentleman was overflowing with hilarity and kindness, and, a handsome portion having been bestowed upon Emily, the marriage was fixed to take place on the 4th day from that time, the suddenness of which preparations reduced 3 dressmakers and a tailor to the extreme verge of insanity. Getting post-horses to the carriage, old Wardle started off, next day, to bring his mother back to town. Communicating his intelligence to the old lady with characteristic impetuosity, she instantly fainted away, but being promptly revived, ordered the brocaded silk gown to be packed up forthwith, and proceeded to relate some circumstances of a similar nature attending the marriage of the eldest daughter of Lady Tollimglower, deceased, which occupied 3 hours in the recital, and were not half finished at last. Mrs. Trundle had to be informed of all the mighty preparations that were making in London, and, being in a delicate state of health, was informed thereof through Mr. Trundle, lest the news should be too much for her. But it was not too much for her, inasmuch as she at once rode off to Muggleton to order a new cap and a black satin gown, and moreover avowed her determination of being present at the ceremony. Hereupon Mr. Trundle called in the doctor, and the doctor said Mrs. Trundle ought to know best how she felt herself, to which Mrs. Trundle replied that she felt herself quite equal to it, and that she had made up her mind to go, upon which the doctor, who was a wise and discreet doctor, and knew what was good for himself as well as for other people, said that perhaps if Mrs. Trundle stopped at home, she might hurt herself more by fretting than by going, so perhaps she had better go. And she did go, the doctor with great attention sending in 6 of medicine to be drunk upon the road. In addition to these points of distraction, Wardle was entrusted with 2 small letters to 2 small young ladies who were to act as bridesmaids. upon the receipt of which, the two young ladies were driven to despair by having no things ready for so important an occasion, and no time to make them in a circumstance which appeared to afford the two worthy papas of the two small young ladies rather a feeling of satisfaction than otherwise. However, old frocks were trimmed, and new bonnets made, and the young ladies looked as well as could possibly have been expected of them. And as they cried at the subsequent ceremony in the proper places, and trembled at the right times, they acquitted themselves to the admiration of all beholders. How the two poor relations ever reached London, whether they walked, or got behind coaches, or procured lifts in wagons, or carried each other by turns is uncertain. But there they were, before Wardle, and the very first people that knocked at the door of Mr. Pickwick's house on the bridal morning were the two poor relations, all smiles and shirt collar. They were welcomed heartily, though, for riches or poverty had no influence on Mr. Pickwick. The new servants were all alacrity and readiness. Sam was in a most unrivaled state of high spirits and excitement. Mary was glowing with beauty and smart ribbons. The bridegroom, who had been staying at the house for 2 or 3 days previous, sallied forth gallantly to Dulwich Church to meet the bride, attended by Mr. Pickwick, Ben Allen, Bob Sawyer, and Mr. Tupman, with Sam Weller outside, having at his buttonhole a white favor, the gift of his ladylove, and clad in a new and gorgeous suit of livery invented for the occasion. They were met by the Wardles and the Winkles and the bride and bridesmaids and the Trundles, and the ceremony having been performed, the coaches rattled back to Mr. Pickwick's to breakfast, where little Mr. Perker already awaited them. Here all the light clouds of the more solemn part of the proceedings passed away. Every face shone forth joyously, and nothing was to be heard but congratulations and commendations. Everything was so beautiful. The lawn in front, the garden behind, the miniature conservatory, the dining room, the drawing room, the bedrooms, the smoking room, and above all the study with its pictures and easy chairs, and odd cabinets and queer tables, and books out of number, with a large cheerful window opening upon a pleasant lawn and commanding a pretty landscape, dotted here and there with little houses almost hidden by the trees. And then the curtains and the carpets and the chairs and the sofas. Everything was so beautiful, so compact, so neat, and in such exquisite taste, said everybody, that there really was no deciding what to admire most. And in the midst of all this stood Mr. Pickwick, his countenance lighted up with smiles, which the heart of no man, woman, or child could resist, himself the happiest of the group, shaking hands over and over again with the same people, and when his own hands were not so employed, rubbing them with pleasure, turning round in a different direction at every fresh expression of gratification or curiosity, and inspiring everybody with his looks of gladness and delight. Breakfast is announced. Mr. Pickwick leads the old lady, who has been very eloquent on the subject of Lady Tollenglower, to the top of a long table. Wardle takes the bottom. The friends arrange themselves on either side. Sam takes his station behind his master's chair. The laughter and talking cease. Mr. Pickwick, having said grace, pauses for an instant and looks round him. As he does so, the tears roll down his cheeks, in the fullness of his joy. Let us leave our old friend in one of those moments of unmixed happiness, of which, if we seek them, there are ever some, to cheer our transitory existence here. There are dark shadows on the earth, but its lights are stronger in the contrast. Some men, like bats or owls, have better eyes for the darkness than for the light. We, who have no such optical powers, are better pleased to take our last parting look at the visionary companions of many solitary hours, when the brief sunshine of the world is blazing full upon them. It is the fate of most men who mingle with the world, and attain even the prime of life, to make many real friends, and lose them in the course of nature. It is the fate of all authors or chroniclers to create imaginary friends, and lose them in the course of art. Nor is this the full extent of their misfortunes, for they are required to furnish an account of them besides. In compliance with this custom unquestionably, abade one we subjoin a few biographical words, in relation to the party at Mr. Pickwick's assembled. Mr. and Mrs. Winkle, being fully received into favor by the old gentleman, were shortly afterwards installed in a newly built house, not half a mile from Mr. Pickwick's. Mr. Winkle, being engaged in the city as agent or town correspondent of his father, exchanged his old costume for the ordinary dress of Englishmen, and presented all the external appearance of a civilized Christian ever afterwards. Mr. and Mrs. Snodgrass settled at Dingley Dell, where they purchased and cultivated a small farm, more for occupation than profit. Mr. Snodgrass, being occasionally abstracted and melancholy, is to this day reputed a great poet among his friends and acquaintance, although we do not find that he has ever written anything to encourage the belief. There are many celebrated characters, literary, philosophical, and otherwise, who hold a high reputation on a similar tenure. Mr. Tupman, when his friends married and Mr. Pickwick settled, took lodgings at Richmond, where he has ever since resided. He walks constantly on the terrace during the summer months, with a youthful and jaunty air, which has rendered him the admiration of the numerous elderly ladies of single condition who reside in the vicinity. He has never proposed again. Mr. Bob Sawyer, having previously passed through the Gazette, passed over to Bengal, accompanied by Mr. Benjamin Allen, both gentlemen having received surgical appointments from the East India Company. They each had the yellow fever 14 times and then resolved to try a little abstinence, since which period they have been doing well. Mrs. Bardell let lodgings to many conversable single gentlemen, with great profit, but never brought any more actions for breach of promise of marriage. Her attorneys, Messrs. Dodson and Fogg, continue in business, from which they realize a large income, and in which they are universally considered among the sharpest of the sharp. Sam Weller kept his word, and remained unmarried for 2 years. The old housekeeper dying at the end of that time, Mr. Pickwick promoted Mary to the situation, on condition of her marrying Mr. Weller at once, which she did without a murmur. From the circumstance of 2 sturdy little boys having been repeatedly seen at the gate of the back garden, there is reason to suppose that Sam has some family. The elder Mr. Weller drove a coach for 12 months, but being afflicted with the gout, was compelled to retire. The contents of the pocketbook had been so well invested for him, however, by Mr. Pickwick, that he had a handsome independence to retire upon which he still lives at an excellent public house near Shooter's Hill, where he is quite reverenced as an oracle, boasting very much of his intimacy with Mr. Pickwick, and retaining a most unconquerable aversion to widows. Mr. Pickwick himself continued to reside in his new house, employing his leisure hours in arranging the memoranda which he afterwards presented to the secretary of the once famous club, or in hearing Sam Weller read aloud, with such remarks as suggested themselves to his mind, which never failed to afford Mr. Pickwick great amusement. He was much troubled at first by the numerous applications made to him by Mr. Snodgrass, Mr. Winkle, and Mr. Trundle to act as godfather to their offspring, but he has become used to it now and officiates as a matter of course. He never had occasion to regret his bounty to Mr. Jingle, for both that person and job trotter became, in time, worthy members of society, although they have always steadily objected to return to the scenes of their old haunts and temptations. Mr. Pickwick is somewhat infirm now, but he retains all his former juvenility of spirit and may still be frequently seen, contemplating the pictures in the Dulwich Gallery or enjoying a walk about the pleasant neighborhood on a fine day. He is known by all the poor people about, who never fail to take their hats off, as he passes, with great respect. The children idolize him, and so indeed does the whole neighborhood. Every year he repairs to a large family merrymaking at Mr. Wardle's. On this, as on all other occasions, he is invariably attended by the faithful Sam, between whom and his master there exists a steady and reciprocal attachment which nothing but death will terminate. End of the project Gutenberg ebook of the Pickwick Papers by Charles Dickens.